No.
Oh.
All order?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Bianca.
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Fiorito.
Here.
Councilmember Wells.
Here.
And Mayor Knowles. Mayor O'Neill.
Here.
Myself.
Just kidding with you, Dwayne.
So can we get a motion to approve the minutes on February 2nd, 2017?
I will so offer.
I'll second.
Councilmember Fiorito.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Fiorito.
Yes.
Councilmember Wells.
Yes.
And Mayor O'Neill.
Yes.
Minutes have been approved. And first, now we'll be open for public comments on the resolution.
On the consent agenda? Yeah, all of them. Carol?
Carol Bucko, 330 Shore Drive. I have several questions. I must have not been busy today. On resolution 17054, shared service for street sweeping.
Right.
That concerns me, and why it concerns me is because what streets are you gonna sweep? Because remember, I just wanna recall when we had the garbage contract with them. Our trucks could not get down their little streets, so we had to have dump trucks go down the streets, bring it back with a garbage truck. It cost us a lot of money, and we did not fare well with that shared service.
Correct.
So if this shared service is going to sweep their little streets, we might lose our sweeper.
Like the sweeper's small and then the garbage truck is big. All I can tell you, it should work.
Well, I haven't been down the side streets a lot, you know, the back streets especially. I don't know if they have curbs, or if they don't have curbs, or if
You see where most, well, down this side, I don't think they
they're,
get
yeah.
it. You know, they are now.
Yeah, I think at the time, that's a great question about the side streets and tone. And the clock starts as soon as we drive into Seabright. So if the street sweeper's sitting there waiting for cars to be moved, it's on the clock 2 hours later. If they sit there for 2 hours, street sweeper comes back, it's on the clock quickly. So their side streets, if they're not cleared for the street sweeper to come out, it's not going down that street.
And you're sure Seabright is going to agree to
Yeah,
the
they've been
overtime?
very
They've
yes.
been told, and Mr. Dagan was pretty forward with that.
It'd also be essential terms of the shared services agreement or in the resolution, but one of the items are that Seabright must provide a schedule of the streets to be swept, water fill location for the sweeper, as well as location for dump sweepings to clean out at the end of the projected date. So they do have to provide that, so everything you've indicated is still out.
Okay, just keep a close watch on it, because whenever we share something with them, we kind of get stuck.
And we're gonna give the guy a book of tickets, so if you go over, just find a ticket for me. You know, that's generally how it works in the train. You know what I mean? Okay, just 3 hours today, time a ticket here for me,
Okay.
then you charge accordingly.
Okay. And 17055, another shared service for lifeguards, which I don't object to that because you have to pay those kids by the hour and whatever. But, again, Seabright is going to be in charge of that. Can we trust them? And to not put more hours than are necessary, number one. And what about you only have Snugget and Miller covered. Does nobody use the South Bay anymore?
No, that's a separation.
Oh, I just wondered because that was our beach when we lived up there.
This is a shared service in conjunction with the sweeping.
No, this is
No,
with
this,
the
no, I'm telling you
lifeguards.
this,
Yeah.
right,
Oh,
that's the trade-off. We sweep their streets, they provide the
there were
lifeguards.
two different amounts in the,
That's
Yeah.
They're
correct,
very
but-
close together, but
I know that.
They were a little apart.
But they're
And at the end of the year, the two borough administrators are gonna figure out the
That's when the fishing boat comes in.
Oh, okay. 17058. I think somewhere in there, you talk about the planning board and zoning board listed separate.
Yes,
They're no longer separate items.
understand.
Why do you have them listed separately for
Um,
2017?
The system just simply grabbed 25% of the previous year's operations and it picked it up on a resolution that way. It doesn't mean we're gonna spend that or we're gonna authorize expenditures against that. It was just a line item we had last year that we just accrued 25% to.
But you're asking why it doesn't say land use board rather than
Right,
those two?
instead of both.
Yeah,
Because I took it from last year.
sure, so we're in conversations about that and we are gonna be combining that in the municipal document, which is expected to come out in March.
Okay,
Good, Carol?
I think that's it.
You gotta find something to do.
For today.
Well, I've been laid up with the cold.
Chris?
Just to provide a different flavor for the shared service of the Seabrook and Carroll. We should try and make this work. I mean, the garbage experience should color how we approach these new shared services because it's the way things have to go. We have to, if there's a problem comes up, let's make it work. Let's not throw our hands up the way we did with the garbage, to be quite honest.
Well, and that's what Brian Gagan did. He worked very long and hard
Okay,
with Seabright in order to get this, because they need the sweeper, we need the lifeguards, and that's how he made this deal happen.
Carol projected that it was a negative experience about the garbage, and maybe it was, but at this point, we need to make sure that,
I don't think any of us are going in looking at it as a negative thing.
I'm sorry?
I don't think any of us are going into this looking at it in a negative light.
Well, we didn't for the garbage either, but it turned out bad for us.
Maybe this is a better suited shared service.
Well, I think it'd be fair to say the time and interest wasn't put into the garbage as it was into the lifeguards and the sweeping issue.
You were there, I was.
I know. That's why I can say that.
Anybody else?
Well, I'll offer these. That's 53 Sue through 60, correct?
Not 60, through 59.
First to do our 17051 because that has an impact on our 1759.
Okay. Let me close the public portion.
I'll offer 17051.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Councilmember Brian,
Yes.
Councilmember Carr,
Yes.
Councilmember Diorigo.
Yes.
Councilmember Wells,
Yes.
Mayor Lee.
I abstain.
Resolution 17-051 has been passed. For the consent agenda, just for the record, resolution number 17052 has been withdrawn for consideration. And resolution number 17-060 will be considered separately because it has to have a public hearing. So the consent agenda will consist of resolution number 053, which is the authorization of disposal of surplus property. Resolution 054, authorizing the shared services with Seabright for street sweeping. Resolution 55, authorizing the shared services with Seabright for lifeguards. Resolution 56 is the approval to submit a grant application with the New Jersey Department of Transportation for Portland Road. Resolution 57 is canceling capital improvement appropriation balances. Resolution number 58, authorizing amendments to the 2017 temporary budget. And resolution 059, authorizing the payment of bills.
I will offer that.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Councilmember Brian,
Yes.
Councilmember Carr,
Yes.
Councilmember Diorigo.
Yes.
Councilmember Wells,
Yes.
Mayor O'Neill.
I'll vote yes on 53 to 58, and I'll abstain on 59.
Problem with that is the consent agenda is all or nothing.
Well, you didn't bother asking.
Okay.
So do you wanna pull
Pull
1759 out?
Okay, no, go ahead, that'll be all right. I'll vote yes.
Okay.
Just 1759 does have an impact on 1751 that you abstained from, that's why the question was.
Hold on separately?
Yes.
Okay.
You can pull 1759 vote separately, okay?
Okay.
So the consent agenda will be 1753 through 1758, and then 17, and that's it.
That's correct.
So 1759 will be separate.
So can I get,
So now you have to offer 1759.
I offer 1759.
I'll second it.
Roll call?
Councilmember Brouillon,
Yes.
Councilmember Carr,
Yes.
Councilmember DeRito,
Yes.
Councilmember Wells,
Yes.
and Mayor O'Neill.
I'll abstain, thank you.
Next for consideration is resolution number 17060, which will be adopting the Highlands Business Partnership budget for the year 2017, which requires a public hearing.
Call for an open vote.
Do you have any questions on it?
Seeing none, I'll close it.
Motion to approve that resolution.
I'll offer it.
I'll second it.
Councilmember Brouillon,
Yes.
Councilmember Carr,
Abstain.
Councilmember DeRito,
Yes.
Councilmember Wells,
Yes.
and Mayor O'Neill.
Yes.
Resolution 060 has passed. We have for public hearing and possible adoption ordinance number 17-02, which is amending chapter 2 of the Borough Code in order to establish the Borough of Highlands Green Team Advisory Committee. For public hearing.
That's to be open for public hearing.
I'll open for public hearing. 1702. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll close it to the public.
A motion to approve that resolution or adopt that ordinance.
I'll offer it.
I'll second.
Roll call? please.
Councilmember Brouillon,
Yes.
Councilmember Carr,
Yes.
Councilmember DeRito,
Yes.
Councilmember Wells,
Yes.
Mayor O'Neill.
Yes.
Ordinance number 17-02 has been properly adopted. Next for consideration for possible adoption after public hearing is ordinance 17-03, providing for various capital improvements.
Would you like to speak on this, Patrick? Just a
A
little background
little
information.
background, yeah, we spoke about this before, there's a matching grant available to the town. It's $150,000 of our open space funding, and that will be matched with $150,000 of the county funding. Councilwoman DeRito had gotten very much involved in that, and if you want to explain what the details are, but that's pretty much what the funding sets it in place.
Correct.
Basically, what we did was the Open Space Committee worked in conjunction with T&M, and we submitted an application for a Monmouth County Open Space Grant for bathrooms. It's a 4-phase project. We had a public hearing back in September on it. There's, in part of that 4-phase project are bathrooms, an awning on this building, the removable dock or boat launch. What else? I think that's pretty much it.
Oh, and the ADA grant.
Oh, and the ADA, I'm sorry. It'll be over a 4-year period. Hopefully we'll have this replenished each year as we complete certain parts of the project. I know that Dale and Brian Gagan have met recently and are tweaking something concerning one of the bathrooms. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
I can certainly speak to it. The intent was to maybe come up with an alternate solution to putting a standalone bathroom out here, either on the beach or on the deck. Permitting constraints, if you put it on the beach, your permit's gonna be out there quite a ways. If you put it on the deck, you're gonna lose a lot of your deck space.
Right.
Mr. Gagan and myself looked around to see if maybe we could do something inside the building here. and it looks like we would be able to use that closet, and instead of and make it a wall with vents so you can't enter in and out, but put a door on the outside, so you just have access from the outside into that room for one toilet, one sink. It meets ADA.
Right.
And if that's the way, if that's the way the governing body of the town wants to go, it's fine. There's very little I need to do at that point. Just, basically get quotes and go.
Would that compromise the nature of using open space?
I don't believe it will, because it's still serving the purpose of the beachgoers, right? And it's in your community center, so it's not like it's going into like a private building or a business. So I believe you're still maintaining that, because the access is really only for them. If you're inside the building, you already have a bathroom over in here. And if you're outside, you're not coming in any other part of the building. If you have programs for kids and everything, you're only using that bathroom. So it should fly and save you some money on the back end.
Because you're getting away from the unit that you were looking for.
Correct.
Right.
The unit itself, just to purchase and get here, is $75,000 and up.
No, that's a good idea.
So we talked to Jen Strail too, and obviously storage is a premium, and we understood that. But given the standards, the upstairs could be used as storage. There's more storage too, and maybe rework differently. But that closet would satisfy your ADA requirements and everything.
And the object of the Open Space Committee, and one of the things one of our goals was to make the beaches more accessible to the public. And having a bathroom for the public to use is very important. We're talking about that we are the only free beaches around. We have a sign up on the hill that says, come down to our free beach when Sandy Hook is full, and yet we don't have any place for them to go to the bathroom, or shower, or do whatever.
Is there gonna be an outside shower of some sort?
Can
Or-
we still-
we can still do that, because you can still pipe it. You can still run a pipe from the bathroom, say, strap it to the other side of the deck, and still bring it up on the back side with, like, a spring-loaded faucet, say.
Just cold water.
Yeah, that's all. That's all.
And once that's completed, then we can submit the bill for that and hopefully replenish some of the funding, correct?
Yes.
Any questions, everybody?
Peter, do you have a question? Only if there was any impact to the flood prevention system you have in place for this building.
No, there wouldn't be for that. You'd have to still put a ramp out here, maybe by where the stairway is, but that ramp would interfere with your, we'll call it the floodgates that slide into the channels that are on the outside. So it wouldn't impact it.
Everybody good? I'll close the motion. Anybody like to offer that?
I'll offer it.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Briano,
Yes.
Councilmember Carr,
Yes.
Councilmember Ianarino,
Yes.
Councilmember Wells,
Yes.
Mayor O'Neill.
Yes. I'll say I feel better about it already.
Ordinance number 1703 has been properly adopted. Next for consideration is introduction of ordinance number 17-04, which is appropriating $1,025,000 for various capital improvement projects.
Okay, maybe before we go through this, we have Dale
You want me to do that
put
now?
a presentation on so we can see what we're talking about.
So just to bring everybody up to speed, a couple weeks ago, Mayor, Councilwoman Wells, myself, Mr. Wazio, and Kim Gonzalez all met over at Borough Hall and went through a lot of the old bond ordinances, projects that were closed up, closed out, projects that may not be progressed at this time because of other priorities that may have arisen. And as a result of that, we were able to free up some more bonding capacity. All right, so what the intent of this presentation tonight is to go over a generic approach to how we approach different projects, whether it be roads, whether it be sewers, storm sewers, etc., and then what we have in mind to move forward for this year. All right, I know there's been a lot of talk, and I'm not bashful to say there's a lot of talk about the platinum designs and over designs and stuff like that. The intent is obviously to save money. We're not looking to give you a gold-plated road unless you need it. I mean, if you have a very low traveled street, you're not going to need that top of the line pavement box. You're not going to need, maybe, if you don't want to bring in a large watershed into an area, maybe you don't need to increase pipe sizes. It all comes down to what the governing body wants to do, is what it boils down to. So with that, let me start on this. So the first slide is you want to identify funding, right? So you close out bond ordinances from completed projects. Sometimes you'll have an ordinance that gets put in, say, $1 million. Maybe you spend 800,000 of it. You still have 200,000 unaccounted for. Close that bond out, and this way you're free of some capacity to do something else. You can reduce bond amounts from projects that may be needed but are currently a lower priority. You may have had something in mind that you could maybe cut back on. Maybe you don't need to do it. You just leave some of them for repairs, say. All right. As I said, you increase bonding capacity as a result of 1 and 2. And number 4 is grants. Grants. There's grants that are available out there. There's grants that the borough has been fortunate enough and successful enough to obtain. So that's obviously a high focus. The more grants we can get, the less it comes down to borough coffers. So a generic project approach, when you look at a project, you look at the cost versus the benefit. All right, what is that benefit going to be at the end of the day after the project's complete? And was it worth what you spent on it? Was it worth to widen out a road and put a 6-inch pavement box in on a short, narrow street that really doesn't get used except by those residents on that street? Is it worth it to increase the pipe size if you're not really having issues now? It all depends on how you look at that, right? So you identify the specific needs for that project. You consider the overall usage of the portion of the infrastructure. So again, you go back to how many people use it. What's the nature of the beast, for lack of a better term? So with a roadway project, right? To prepare for it, you do roadway cores to assist in determining the approach. All right. The first thing you do is, and I'll get to this in a little while on some of the roads we're doing later on, but you want to take a look at the cores and see maybe you can do a mill and overlay instead of doing a full reconstruct. That's obviously going to save you a lot of money off the top. Now, over the years, you have done a lot of reconstruction on these roads. So moving forward, when it comes time for those roads to be resurfaced, a lot of them can simply be milled and overlaid. Maybe some base repair underneath, but it's a lot less of a cost to maintain that roadway at that point. All right? You want to walk the streets in dry and wet weather to identify areas of concern. You want to see where the ponding is, where the possible icing is, how the water flows. If you need to add drainage. All right? You have to understand, though, that a milling and overlay project won't necessarily eliminate a low area. If you've got a road that's got a gully in it, and you take 2 inches off it and put 2 inches back, that gully is going to stay. So you want to be mindful of that when you look at a mill and overlay. It may not necessarily be a straight mill and overlay. Another portion, you want to televise sewers. Sanitary and storm sewers, you want to have a camera run through them and identify areas of concern. You definitely don't want to resurface a roadway, then have to go back in and rip that brand new roadway up because you got issues with your infrastructure. All right, and then also what you do is you let the utility companies know, hey, we're going to be out doing this road, doing these pipes, whatever the case may be. So they can not only identify their utilities, but also, hey, if you have an old pipe, an old gas line, an old water line you're looking to replace, and have to do that now before we come in to redo the road. All right, so mill and overlay versus a reconstruct. Again, it depends on core information, how thick the pavement is now. If you only have 2 inches on a road, you definitely don't want to do a mill and overlay. If you mill that down to dirt and you start driving on it, there's a good chance you're going to lose that subbase, and then you're going to have other issues anyway. Required utility replacements and repairs. So if you have to do a lot of utility replacements, you're not going to do a mill and overlay because the base at that point is going to be like Swiss cheese. It's going to be cut up, marked up. You can have different areas of compaction. It's not going to work well. You're going to get less use out of your road. Improper drainage patterns, profiles, and cross slopes. Maybe the drainage isn't going the way it should be. Maybe it's running onto the adjacent properties, or maybe it's ponding in areas. So that will work in dictating a mill and overlay. Also, the effects on curbs and sidewalks. If you have a ponding area and you're trying to lift that up, you might lose your curb face, which means now you're chasing your sidewalks, so on and so forth. What I call a hybrid approach is also acceptable, where you can have, say, one block that's in really good shape, and maybe you can do a mill and overlay on that block, and the rest of it's a reconstruct. Just because you're saying the road has to be reconstructed doesn't mean the whole thing has to. Obviously, you don't want to look at, say, a 20-foot section that's mill and overlay list, and the rest of it will reconstruct. But there are ways to do a hybrid. They get into the road we just submitted for Portland Road. I was looking at that as that could be a possibility if we're successful with that grant. Again, you walk the streets of dry and wet weather concern, advise the utilities, and then you finalize the scope with the borough before design. So once we identify the problems, we come to you guys, say this is how we want to approach it, and then we do a final design and we come up with a cost estimate. That cost estimate, say it's out of the price range. This is going to cost you $400,000 for this road to reconstruct and add drainage to it. All right, well maybe there's things you can cut back, and at that point maybe you consider an alternate bid where you would award a base bid, and then if you have money to do so, you award the alternates, like we did on Streetscape Phase 2. We awarded the stamped sidewalks and the light poles, but we didn't award anything else. And the lights were an alternate there, but you had enough money to do so. So that's the approach you would do. Sanitary sewers. Cleaning and televising those sanitary sewers are essential. All right, you definitely don't want to have to rip up a road and replace an entire main unless you absolutely positively have to. The best way to do it, run a camera through it and see what the issues are. You may have a couple cracks here and there. You might have a spot repair to do, but it's going to be a lot cheaper in the long run to do it that way. Inspect the manholes and the castings, see if you have any broken frames, broken covers, see if the manholes are leaking or if they need some repairs on the breaks. There's a lot of old break infrastructure in town. Look for sinkholes. Identify potential problems that may be main or lateral related. Keep in mind that the borough's responsibility for each lateral is from the main to the curb line. All right, so you might have a main that runs down this side of the road. You might have a sinkhole here. It doesn't mean it's not the borough's problem. It still may be a borough problem. So you definitely want to look and try to identify those items. And then discuss the proposed project location with the borough DPW to identify areas of recurring problems. The DPW is an untapped resource a lot of times. A lot of people forget about that, but they're here every day. They're the ones that get called out in the sewer clogs. They're the ones that get called out if the sewer breaks. Somebody has sewage backing up. So they're aware of what we'll call the trouble areas. So you want to definitely tap into that information as well. All right, approach. Again, you identify the appropriate rehabilitation measures based on the results of the television inspection and your site visit. That could be a full replacement. It could be a lining. It could be a spot repair where you do have to dig up the road, but only a portion to do a small repair on the pipe. It could be a point repair, which is I'll call it a sock. It's a cement lined sock. Instead of lining the whole pipe, you do a small portion of it. You can run a machine to graft the joints of the pipe. And there's a chemical root treatment that you cut the roots back and you run a chemical through there to keep the roots from growing back in the pipe again. You want to go for the most cost-effective way to rehabilitate it without having to excavate. Like I said, that should be your last resort. Kind of like a tourniquet on an injury, that's your last resort on this, is you don't want to excavate because your prices start going up drastically. Again, you reduce inflow and infiltration into the system, that results in direct savings to the borough. Now, when all the sewage flows through our pump station that gets to Thompson, that gets metered by the gallon. Doesn't matter what kind of fluid it is, it's getting treated, you're getting billed for it. So as much I&I as we can keep out of the system, that's going to be a beneficial cost savings to the borough itself. Storm sewer projects, preparation is basically the same, all right? However, with the storm sewer, a lot of times it leans towards replacement. Reason being, you have different pipes, aged pipe materials. We have a lot of corrugated metal pipe in town still from years going by. And unfortunately, that's starting to show its age and starting to fail now. Starting to rust out, collapse on itself. Keep in mind it's going through a lot of storms, a lot of salt water. Now there's a lot of banging on the ground of houses coming down and pilings and stuff like that for houses going up. So those pipes are starting to feel their age, we'll call it. And keep in mind, many of the sanitary sewer rehabilitation measures aren't suitable for storm. You're not necessarily going to try to go in and line a 15-inch storm line. You're going to replace part of it that you need to. So, available funding. So, like I said, you close out bond ordinance for completed projects, reduce bond amounts, right? We were able to save about $4.6 million. We were able to identify $4.6 million in that meeting we had a couple weeks ago. And that's basically just from closing out projects, reducing bonds in areas. Formal action starting tonight. You do have grants. And like I said, grants are a big thing. If somebody's offering to give you money, go after it. Go take it. We do have $83,000 for Miller Street from Shore to Bay. We have $250,000 for Valley Street from the DOT. That's from Shore to Fifth. We have $146 and change for the sewer rehab. I'll get to where those lines are in a minute. And we also have $25,000 coming to us for Bay Street from New Jersey American Water that we negotiated with them. Instead of restoring, doing their final restoration that's going to be ripped up, give us the money that you would have spent for it, and we'll put that towards the road. And then obviously, as the governing body just discussed, $150 for the restrooms and awning from Monmouth County Open Space. So I mean, those are all good grants, and it saves. I mean, just in this slide alone, you can see there's over $500,000 in grants alone right there. So, 2017 roadway rehab projects. So let's start with the other 300-pound gorilla in the room besides myself, and we're going to go with Bay Street. All right, the whole thing. So Bay Street, as many of you know, that's been on the radar for several years. It's deteriorated. The water company ran a line through it several years ago. It was tough to find money to do it. Unfortunately, a lot of the grants don't. It doesn't qualify for a lot, like DOT, and wouldn't meet their criteria to get a grant for that road. It's a low-travel residential street. So with that in mind, even though to reconstruct, you don't necessarily have to do the normal 4-inch base and 2-inch top course on the asphalt. Maybe you go back to a 2 and 2. You save yourself on 1,000 yards. You save yourself about 120 tons on a road like this. All right, that equates to about $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 you can save just on paving alone. All right, you can put that towards some of your concrete repairs. All right, but again, you need to look at the sanitary sewer and make those repairs based on the TV inspection. Same thing if you have any drainage. All right, drainage improvements we're looking at mainly along the southern portion where it widens out. That seems to be where the largest problem is. We should have a meeting with the residents to discuss several potential approaches as far as road width, curbing, what they want to see. There's many ways you can attack this road. You can narrow it, make it a one-way with mountable curb where they can park on, you can straddle the curb, kind of like we did on Washington. You can leave it the same width, but we should have that meeting to get a feel for what they want. This road's a long time coming. And then the construction costs, depending on final scope and approach, you're looking between $350,000 and $450,000. Again, it depends on how much drainage we're looking to put in, what the road width will be, and we'll determine that. As a group, we'll determine that and come up with a final approach for design. Next one is Miller Street. All right, it was originally a full reconstruct, but it might move to mill and overlay. Okay, we're going to cut some corners. If there's enough pavement there, there's no reason why we couldn't take 2 off, put 2 back, and call it a day. All right, construction costs will be between $80,000 and $175,000, depending on corners. We do have that $83,000 grant from the DOT, and we're going to look to couple this with, say, Bay Street for better pricing. If you try to do this as a standalone project, there's no way you'll get a good price on it because it's too much for someone to bring all their equipment out to do that little 1-block stretch. So the price would definitely increase. North Peak Street, a little forgotten road up on Valley Avenue, and it goes up the hill to a dead end. But this is one of those hybrids. We're looking at maybe a full reconstruct near Valley, a potential mill and overlay for the remaining, just because it's a narrow residential street that may not need to spend all that money on. All right, we're going to take some cores up there. We do road cores. They charge us by the day. It's not by the core, so we have them here. So we might as well take advantage of it. And again, a potential for pavement thickness reduction due to the lowest traveled street. Nobody goes up there unless you're a resident or say your occasional garbage vehicle plow. So we're looking to do that. Potentially putting curbing on the low side to keep the runoff from impacting the properties. All those houses are low along North Peak Street, so the water comes off the road and goes right to their yards. We'll put some curbing there to channel it, or possibly warp the pavement away from the houses. There's nothing that says you can't tilt that pavement section away towards that hill to get the water to run down the other side of the street and then down towards Valley that way. Again, costs are going to be between $20,000 and $80,000 depending on the course. I mean, it could be a very quick, cost-effective fix. Another one is Twin Lakes Terrace, from Lighthouse to Hillside. This is another potential hybrid. We have to look at it a little further. This road, it's narrow, it's windy, it's it's in bad shape, but it's going to be tough to get full-size equipment up there. So we're going to look at that a little closer. We're going to take some corners again. Same thing with the pavement thickness. Same thing with the curbing. And then we have to look at sanitary and storm. But the existing drainage lines up there that I noticed they're not functioning. All right, so we might have to reroute some things or take a look how we could rectify that. There's one line up there that apparently ran down through some of the houses underneath somebody's garage and out towards Grand Tour, and that line doesn't look like it's worked in years. And unfortunately, it's a dip in the road, so it's not like you could just kind of eliminate it without doing some major grading of the roadway. So we're going to look at that a little further. And that was that low area in the mid-street that's going to be a challenge. Again, it's a narrow, windy road, so it's going to be a challenge for maneuverability. That may impact construction costs just on that alone. Costs between 175 and 235, depending on the results of the cores and how we can approach it with resolving the drainage issue that's up there. All right. Also on the roadway, South Bay Avenue drainage outfall at the end of South Bay. There's an outfall that is currently failing. It's at the end of the road, goes down along somebody's house, out to the water. All right. So what I want to do is I want to clean and TV that line when we do the sanitary sewers, and see if maybe we can get away with not replacing that whole pipe back to the road. Maybe there's only a portion that failed, we can drop an intermediate structure in and only replace a portion of that pipe instead of the whole thing. So that would be the approach on that. And again, construction costs, it's tough to say on how much that pipe you have to replace. So there's really no cost on that right now until we see what the TV does. Washington Avenue repairs. All right, this is repair required from the bulkhead failure replacement during Hurricane Irene. All right, we're going to do this as a change order to a road program contract. It's such a small area, you don't want to do this on its own. Again, you'll get a high cost for it. There's no sense of me putting a design to it. It's very straightforward. You've got two areas you're marrying up to, and you're putting some curb in, and you're going to be done with it. So we're going to handle that as an infield change order. All right, sanitary sewers. So as I said earlier, we have community development block grant money from Monmouth County, right? We went in for rehabilitation of sanitary sewer mains, and these are all between Bay Avenue and Shore Drive, but it consists of Atlantic Street, Seadrift Avenue, Barbary Avenue, Washington Avenue. So it's those four streets for those blocks. All right, depending on what the TV results show is what we're going to do. Not necessarily rip everything up. You know, I'm hoping to do a lot of underground repair and not have to dig through the streets. Again, project costs range from $150,000 to $350,000, depending on what those TV results show. All right, but we did get almost $150,000 from the county on that. I think the borough was second highest, I think, in the award on that grant. All right, the big project. Stormwater Systems Improvements Project. I think everybody's talked about this over the many years it's been around. The project first came around in 2009, was when we started kicking this around. And it was a much larger project at first. It got pared down to three sections. Snug Harbor Avenue and Washington Avenue, the Valley Street Pump Station area, and the North Street Cornwall Street area. Those were the main three areas of focus. All right, so the intent of the project is to assist in reducing the flooding concerns in the affected areas. It's not going to resolve the downtown flooding. It won't. It's not going to stop the tides from creeping up the beaches. It's not going to stop the water surcharging up the lines that don't have valves on them. All right, this project basically deals with stormwater going out, where the Army Corps project, if that ever comes through, would be from the outside coming in. The Army Corps is more tidal, this is more stormwater. All right? A lot of times in this project, the design was based only on the largest we could fit rather than a specific storm design due to elevation issues. A lot of times you can design to a 25-year storm because you just didn't have the room to do it. Your elevations are already too low, and there's no room to even fit a decent-sized pipe or a pipe that's adequate for that size storm to get in the ground. So a lot of times it's whatever we could fit. Estimated cost, construction cost, is about $5 million. All right, and it's proposed to be funded through the NJEIT as a loan and also through local bonding. Right now, you have more than $4 million bonded on this project. Patrick, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Also, the NJEIT is a loan. What that is the Environmental Infrastructure Trust Fund that they provide a loan to the borough. It depends on the year as to what the rates are, and if there's any part of it's forgiven. If there's zero interest on part of it, so it depends on the year when that loan closes, but that's where we are right now. So, breaking this out into the three sections, Snug Harbor to Washington, project focus to reroute the drainage away from the outfalls on Washington Avenue to a pump station in Jones Creek. All right, the drainage will be installed on portions of Seadrift, Recreation, Barbary, Washington, and Huddy. So basically it takes all that water that used to outfall into the basin of Washington and it would bring it over here to the pump station, to the new pump station. All right, the pump station is a 60,000 gallon per minute pump station. All right, two 30,000 gallon minute pumps. It'll be located at the footbridge closest to the water. It's approximately 63 feet long by 22 feet wide. It's big. It's not a little station. Portion of it will extend about 16 feet above Sun Harbor Avenue. All right, it's not short, it's not small. I don't want to stand up here and say, yeah, you're not going to see it. You're going to notice it. There's no doubt about it. All right. There's also an emergency generator that is going to be installed out here on the corner to power the pump station and the community center here in the event of an emergency. This is one of your shelters. So if we do have a power failure, that generator will kick in, provide power here, and also keep that pump station operational. That platform, it's a large platform. The generator itself is very large. So it's a 26 by 15 platform, and that includes a 3-foot walkway around to service it. And that generator, the top of that generator is going to be about 13 feet above the sand out here, the top of it. All right, the platform will be about 7 feet above the sand. You got to figure that generator is about 6 foot tall. And that's going to be, like I said, that's going to be constructed out here in the northern portion past the deck. Last year I dropped some stakes out there so people could see. I know the stakes aren't there anymore. But just to give an idea of the footprint that's going to take up. Also in this area, there's a chamber. There's a chamber at the corner of Bay Avenue and Snug Harbor, right on the corner. That it was always a bottleneck. It always blocked flow. It restricted flow coming into the channel. So what would happen is you get the flow coming down the hill with a bunch of head pressure and a large volume. It gets in there and it hits the walls and it kind of spirals around in there because it can't get out. So all that does is backs up the pipes coming up towards Bay, in front of the hardware store, in the Honey Park. So this chamber is going to be enlarged and redone along with the valve that comes out of the creek to reduce some of that restriction, get the water out in the creek much quicker, and thereby reducing some of the flooding concerns on Bay Avenue. Permits for this portion of the project, everything's been obtained except for Green Acres. Green Acres came in the 11th hour last year and said, oh, by the way, we need our piece. And they want it, believe it or not, they want it for the pump station in the water. Because that creek is actually a part of this lot. It's not like a separate body, but it's actually part of this lot. We had a pre-application meeting last year. We didn't move forward, depending on the other structures around the beach. However, now that that's been resolved, we should move forward and get the Green Acres permit going. All right. Last year, DEP said they were behind with Green Acres, and a review could take 9 to 12 months. Hopefully, we can push that along. All right. Now, with the EIT, they will not let you even advertise a project to go out to bid unless all permits are in place. So they would actually hold us up on everything, even on the other 2 sections, if this Green Acres permit is not in place. So that's something we have to consider. At that point, and I'll defer to Mr. de Blasio when the time comes, maybe it's more conducive to go our own route instead of the EIT. I'm not exactly sure on that, but we'd have to talk. Again, funding, NJIT, low interest and part forgiveness loan, and local bonding. All right, they might be a little tough to see on this, but this is going to be on the website. The presentation will be up on the website. All right, so you can see here, what we did is we fit a conceptual rendering of what the station looks like inside Jones Creek. So you kind of get an idea of where the station is in relation to the cars and the street itself. All right, the Valley Street pump station area. All right, the project focus in this section was to construct a drainage system along Atlantic Street, Bay Avenue from Atlantic over to Valley, Cedar Street from the plant to 5th, and then 5th Street from Cedar over to Valley as well. Then Valley Street from Shore Drive to the emergency repair recently completed in the station. Now, depending on what was installed, and it'll be evaluated, and that the size of the pipes will be designed may or may not work. We don't know that until we look. All right, they may be fine. There might be some tweaking involved. You might want to go a different way at that point, and maybe just replace that pipe in kind. It's up to you. But that's one thing that has to be looked at. Is if we continue with the pipes we had, we'll just have to verify that everything can be handled. I mean, that's the common practice. And then also the outfall pipe from the station, I use that term loosely because it's really not there anymore, is also being replaced as part of this project. Again, it was corrugated metal out in the water, and it's rusted. I mean, you can see it's only half the pipe is visible in some areas. All permits are currently in place for this project, for this portion of the project. Again, funding is through the EIT. We do have a local aid grant for the roadway only, $250,000 for the roadway only, then also local bonding. We did talk at one point that maybe taking this out of the large project and doing it as a standalone, and move this portion forward, because the Python Valley is getting banged up pretty good. And you also have a time clock ticking on the DOT grant. So that's something else we'll have to consider and talk about.
So part of the local bonding here is already part of that $4 million.
Correct. That's already into what you did. And the last piece of that is the North Street, Cornwall Street area. And that was we had some localized flooding on Bay Avenue between Cornwall and North. But what we did is because the streetscape was moving through, obviously you don't want to do the streetscape, and then come in a year later and rip that up to put some pipes in. So we had the contractor, we were able to negotiate a price with the contractor that did Shrewsbury and North, and they did that pipe for us. They did the crossing there at North Street, coming across Bay, and they ran a pipe down the gutter near Cornwall to alleviate some of that ponding and the flooding that we were seeing there. So basically by doing that, you didn't have to rip up the streetscape again, which would have been bad, and it saved you some money in the long run too. But that section, that's the third section of this project, that's completed now. So really there's only two main focuses, which would be the Snug Harbor, Washington area and the Valley Street area. That's it, unless you have any questions.
Anybody have any questions they'd like to ask Sarah right now?
I have a question.
No.
Nancy Burton?
Nancy Burton, 22 Atlantic Street. One thing, in your professional opinion, and I know this might be a silly question, but what is the cause of all the water that happens here on Snug Harbor where does all of that water come from during like the high rain, fall?
Well, it depends on the tide too, right? Now, if you go out and you get some water coming down this channel, the water comes into this channel from two ways. It comes through from the bay side, which the tide valve was fixed, right? And then it comes through from the storm side in the fall, from the backwaters, say, right?
Right.
But if you look, there's places you can go along this bulkhead and you look, and then you can see right through it.
Right.
So a lot of the water that comes down these streets and everything all gets in. The water comes up in this channel as the tide rises. You got a storm, whatever, and that water comes all over your streets at that point. It doesn't stay in the channel. All right, and water seeks its own level. So if there's a way out of that bulkhead, it's going to find it. And that's what we were talking about a couple years ago about maybe redoing that bulkhead under the HMDP. But yeah, that's a good part of it.
During the rainstorms, but I've seen it, and I know that it happens so often. So I was wondering if it's the level of water in the creek and then it spills into the street, or if it's I think it's a combination of both. It comes down from the hill,
Right.
so the new catch basin will alleviate a little bit of that, and then a pump station is going to pump it out. I
Correct.
see the result on that.
Right. So correct. So basically, you have some outfalls here too. If those valves aren't working properly, or if they're stuck open, say there's debris in them or whatever, and that water comes up, it's going to make its way back up those pipes, surcharge out the inlets in the street, and the water is also going to go through the bulkhead too.
So my other question is, why does the pump station have to be located so close to the beach? Like,
Reason
why
being,
does it have to be so far at the end?
reason being, if you were just looking to collect the water in the creek, that'd be one thing.
No, you're looking to move.
But the main purpose is also to grab the water from over by Captain's Cove and the other side of it, and bring all that water this way down. Because you have a lot of flooding areas over there, and you have several outfalls into that creek. So what you want to do is you want to bring that water this way. So that's why it's out here, because as it comes across recreation, the station's right there. It dumps into the back of it, and out it goes.
So it's the 16 feet above the roadway. That's the roadway, obviously. I mean,
Right.
that didn't look like 16 feet on the rendering. It looked like.
Well, if you stop, it's far away on the rendering. It's tough to legitimize. But looking at the grades we have on the plan, you're about 16 feet, say, to the top of the pumps from the roadway. And reason being, it's a critical facility, which means that doesn't have to be 100 years out of the floodplain. It has to meet the 500-year criteria, which a lot of times that's approximately 3 feet above the 100, give or take.
What's the base flood on that? 14?
Base flood out here, I think, is a 12, and we're at 15 with the platform.
Yeah, with that being said, has that been approved? All public hearings, everything is all done?
Hang on a second. Robert,
So basically, we've had several public hearings over the years. It hasn't been talked about in a while, so I mean, it wouldn't hurt to talk about it again. But the bonding, a good portion of the bonding is in place. All the permits are obtained. for that station, like I said, with the exception of Green Acres. So the Army Corps has provided the permits, CAFRA's provided the permits, everything's in place except for Green Acres. So the state and the feds have all looked at it and gave their blessing and said, all right, let's go.
That wasn't, Nancy Burton, Atlantic Street, but that was a long time ago, so it would be sensible maybe to look into something else. I also feel like in this day and age, there's probably ways to aesthetically have it look a little nicer than,
Oh, there's no doubt.
okay, than your rendering. So you're talking about putting that up on the internet, that may really scare
Right, well, you have
many
to,
residents or investors.
right, well, you have to stop and think too, that station by itself right now is probably in the maybe a little over 2 million for the whole thing, right? So now you start doing aesthetics to it. Now you've just jumped that price up further. I mean, you can make anything look any way you want it, but it's going to come with a cost. And it's a matter of, again, the cost versus benefit. You can make it look like a lighthouse, say, maybe something like that, but there's going to be a cost associated with that look. And again, almost like the same way for those of you that know the Bay Street retaining wall that we did. We decided on whether to go with like an industrial look or go with a more of a residential look, if you want to call it that. But that was a more expensive approach to it. But the wall came out good. It looks better than what an industrial wall would look like, say, alongside 287 or something. But there's a cost that comes with that aesthetically pleasing structure.
Wherever you put it, somebody's not gonna like it. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
These people don't like it at this end, those people won't like it in the middle, nobody will like it back at the other end. So wherever it is, it's gonna be that way.
There was talk about it not fixing our flooding issues downtown. We live all over town. We always get flooding in the streets. It's very minor on full moons. I can live with it personally. Has it gotten? Yeah, but when I did live on this end of town, it wasn't horrible. But has it gotten worse? Have I noticed that it got worse?
It hasn't gotten better,
Not
really.
Yeah.
I think it's
It's worse.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't, I don't know.
The reason why it's gotten worse is you go out there and unfortunately the repair did not work.
Okay.
The baffles or duck bills, whatever you want to call them, were not maintained for years.
Yeah.
So that's part of the problem, so you have to very rough off. There's another option on the table is the Corps of Engineer, he was at the meeting last year, this time when they were doing, was, and I think it was on the table when Mayor Brandon was on, about filling the creek in. Corps of Engineers explored that option and solving the problem that way. That way you would not have to put a pump station out there without the required piping that you're waiting for their final report and their suggestions. So there are a couple options out there. That's why I said no. I don't think it formally has been approved and accepted and go to brick and mortar type thing.
That's what we were talking about.
Yeah, but
If
you put a
concerns of a few, gonna outweigh the concerns of the other couple hundred houses in here.
If you put a culvert in from the hill to drain the water down, you know how it comes down to Jones Creek and comes across the road there. In that kind of a rainstorm, that'll drain the water from the hill, but the water that accumulates in the streets, on the 5 streets, is not gonna drain into that pipe. So you're gonna flood one area to drain the other area.
But that's not what the Corps of Engineer guy said. That's why we need to hear. 'Cause they said,
Understood, he might not have said that, but that's a fact, that's a fact. When you have pressurized water in one vessel and non-pressurized in another, it is not going through that pipe.
he told us
Without a
about
pipe,
the raw system.
without a pipe improvement,
Right.
without improving on the.
So in actuality, this is a presentation to show you what we did with the bonding, how we recruit money, what we have on the drainage side. Late, I think in March, we're gonna have the Corps engineer come in with their demonstration on the seawall that they're proposing to put in here. And then the decision's gonna have to be made, because you're gonna need both of them to make it work, really, in my opinion. You're gonna have to keep the water out, no more duckbills, no more flappers. You're gonna have to keep the water out, and you're gonna have to pump the water that's behind the wall over the wall to get it out. That's the only way you can do it. I'm a pipe guy, I can figure that out. It's not that hard.
And I realized tonight this was a discussion or a presentation, it's not like you were introducing this to the.
Right, this is going out to bid.
No,
Right,
just so-
right. I realized that. The
It
other
just-
thing that I wanted to talk about was the stormwater mains between bay and shore,
Sanitary.
sanitary stormwater.
Sort of sanitary sewer.
Okay. Have you already looked into if they need have they already had their television?
No,
things done?
that's the first step to do now, is to televise them.
So if they're televised and they look good, you don't really have to
You're not,
remelt
right,
the streets.
you're not going to spend money on them unless they need it. You know, if there's some preventative maintenance, you could do some, you know,
Yeah.
say low-cost preventative maintenance, fine. Same thing, I don't know if you remember, when we did Basin 8, which was over this area over here, was an entire sanitary basin that basically took up this whole area of town. We did that years ago with the sewer authority. It was the same approach. We had some spot repairs, we had some pipe replacements, we had a lot of lining, we had some chemical root treatment areas. So it was a mix of what the repairs were, but it wasn't solely a full replacement on, you know, throughout the entire project area. So
Because I think 3 out of 4 of those streets were just, you know.
I understand. I
So
understand.
I was thinking you take that granted.
Right. Well, the grant's for those areas, so you really can't, you really couldn't reprogram it, I mean, unless you talk to the county for it, but that was in before, I guess before it decided to build pavement ordinance.
See what we're gonna look for, Nance, is to have a town meeting. Maybe we're gonna look to have it up at the high school, and hopefully everybody who lives here, or the majority, will come out, see what's being presented, see how we can address it, and decide right now, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna stop the flooding in this town and improve the drainage? Or are we just gonna say, we're done with this and live the way that we're gonna live?
Yeah.
You know, and you can't do that, but you know what I'm saying. So that it's imperative that people come out and listen to what the board has to say, understand what, you have to be able to do this again, you know.
And you always have to
Down the
remember
road,
that
go through it again, and he'll be at the core, and
I'll come to that meeting.
and you can understand, because you know, you think, well, this can't keep the water out, it's gonna be behind the water, yeah, well, the pump system, it's a hand-in-hand thing if that's what the people want. And if they don't, I don't know.
And just the concern about the Bay Street, remembering the, I know, I'm sorry, the garbage trucks and how they travel on that road all the time. You know, it's a low traveled road, but I remember the garbage trucks was such an issue. And everybody complaining about, so if you're gonna repave it to 2 inches of black asphalt.
No, it wouldn't be 2, it wouldn't be 2, it would be a minimum of 4,
Okay.
but it might not be as much as
It's
6.
a nice street, there's a lot of lovely houses up
Oh,
there.
no doubt. No doubt, but obviously, anywhere you can try to save costs, you want to.
And that's why you wanna go up and meet the people and get their input, like we did with Highlands Avenue, when we were gonna do Highlands Avenue at the bridge. You were there, Chris, we went on a Saturday, right, we spoke to everybody, came out of their house, gave them the information we had, told them who to speak to when it started, and I think it came out well.
We walked that whole road that day,
It's,
we went end to end.
Thank you.
we have to put some of these things to rest. Chris, you wanted to ask me.
Yeah, I had just a comment, and if nothing else, Dale and T&M are consistent, but you opened up the meeting suggesting at this point that the solution, the pump station and the drainage is not guaranteed to keep the water off of the streets. And you're consistent, you've said that, but the reality is, if you've designed the system correctly and you're capturing all of the water that gets on Barbary and Cheerful and Stug and you capture all of that water and you convey it to Jones Creek, you're going to get all the water. So that at this point, I don't know whether it's a professional concern or is there a real doubt, and the perception, especially when you open up the presentation with it, the perception is you're doing this, but you don't think it's.
No, that's not what it was.
Right, 2
Chris.
things.
That was, he said, you're not gonna be able, this won't work if water from the outside keeps it infiltrated. If you're overwhelmed, that's the way I got it. If
Yeah,
you're
if-
overwhelmed with the seawater, you're not gonna be able
It's
to.
not gonna keep the water
down
from
in
falling off the
street.
beach or falling off the
Just
pipe,
that.
but
Yeah.
And let's be clear, that is really relative to the height of the water. And we've always talked that an Irene event, which is 8.5 feet roughly, which was some green water coming over for its bulkhead, not a hell of a lot, all right? This system would protect against that.
right, now, the other part of
But if you're trying to say, well, it won't protect against a Sandy, I don't know that we have an expectation to protect
Right.
against Sandy.
the other part of this, if you picked up what I was saying on the design of it, there's a lot of times that we can design even to a 25-year storm. So you get a storm, and theoretically it happens, every 25 years, so be it, whatever the case may be. A lot of times you couldn't get a pipe in there that size to handle that watershed. So what I'm getting at, hear me out. What I'm getting at is I'm going to say that it may not capture, may help, but not resolve because it wasn't designed to a specific storm because it couldn't be. That's the only point I'm trying to make. Because I know at the end of the
What that's
day,
saying is, you have a hair clog in your bathtub. It drains a little slower, but it does drain out, you know? Is it all gonna go right now? No, it's not.
right. I know at the end of the day, we do this project, and the first flooding we get, everybody's gonna be looking at me. I mean, I got blamed for putting pipes in over here. I got blamed 5 streets away for flooding. These don't interact.
I blame you all the time for everything.
You blame me for everything. So
That's how it works.
I've got to say that the expectations is understand that this may still happen. It's going to be a lot better. Don't get me wrong,
Right.
but it may still happen.
Under certain circumstances. And, we put the Army Corps wall up here, and a storm comes in at 18, the million-year storm, because every year it goes up like that. It's coming over the top, best laid plans.
Right, it's better than what you have now, but it's not going to stop everything.
But when you drive down Bay Avenue on a full moon tide, you don't have to drive down the middle of Bay Avenue.
Right.
You don't soak everybody else that wants to go to the restaurant at night. So it will be an improvement, and I think if the people decide that we want a hand-in-hand improvement, I think that's when things will finally come around. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Just one quick question. The slides talk about the Valley Street correctly, that it is Valley and it includes the Fifth to the
Correct.
pump. The ordinance doesn't say that. The ordinance talks about Valley to Fifth with no indication that it's going past Fifth. I don't think that was your intent.
Well, the DOT ordinance goes to Fifth because it's dirt past there, but
Yeah.
the pipe itself goes all the way.
That's not the way this reads.
Oh, I don't.
But the wording does say it says included, but not limited to. So what we try to do is make a catch-all phrase that we can expand the operations a
Well,
little
if it was inclusive, it would go to the pump station.
Okay,
That's all.
okay, yeah. May I say a comment too?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. We heard the word bonding quite a few times, and my instant reaction is, well, geez, how much is that going to add to the taxpayer? Like, what's that going to do to your tax rate? This is not a bond ordinance. This is not going to add any debt to the town whatsoever. This is a fully funded capital ordinance, so we're going to pay for this out of the grants. We have NJDOT grants and CDBG grants there, as well as some monies we're holding in our capital fund. So this is a pay-as-you-go. And it's my understanding that we're going to be able to accomplish every single one of those slides except for one, which is the NJEIT stormwater one, the $5 million one. We have $4 million of that already set up, but not the last $1 million. But every one of those slides on there that he addressed, this ordinance would take care of, without costing the taxpayer.
I mean, that's big.
It's huge.
Huge. That is really huge. And nobody really understands that.
Yeah.
Sorry?
That's why you brought him.
That's why we're excited
I
about this.
think what's important is that the presentation and the meeting they had, we're going to definitely let the public transparency know these projects as they come closer. Again, Corps of Engineer, we're doing the town hall meeting, they're going to have some ideas what path we take, but we're going to be exposing the community to it so nobody's caught in blind.
Get used to it. You can watch Law and Order on Netflix. You're going to have to come out. Corps of Engineers, opiate presentation by the prosecutor's office for the borough hall. We're having open meetings on those things. You have to come out and participate.
I'll just add.
I'm sorry.
All right, just add final. We did get. I found the letter.
We're still on the introduction.
Okay.
Tracy did his. Oh,
We're still on the introduction of ordinance 754.
Okay.
Hi,
Trish, you
Tricia
have
Rivera, Waterwich Avenue.
It's going to be listed for public hearing at the next meeting, so.
Okay.
I wanted to ask, I was listening on my phone, I didn't realize this was going on, and I have a huge issue with flooding. Ground zero over here is Huddy and Cheerful, as Scott knows. And you're saying that all these pieces that you're putting into place will pick up the we will not get water coming up from our storm drains. It will actually pump out the water.
You'll
before
pump
it
out the
comes
water,
up.
but you should also still have valves on the end of every outfall you have
Of
and
course.
maintain them.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That's a big help.
And then my other question is, you said that part of the project was from Huddy to, I don't know the other street, that was going to be pumped to a pump further downtown.
Right here, right in the creek.
All right, so Washington, what then,
Yes.
Washington to?
Yeah, that's all gonna come this way.
From Washington to?
Yeah.
Okay, so how much is coming this way? What's going on?
From Washington, actually, I think it's the other side of Washington. Yeah, Seadrift will start it. Thank you, Peter. Seadrift coming this way. Water's coming this way. Through a system along Rec, it's going to be pumped, or gravity fed to Rec, come over here and hit this station. And all the outfalls along Washington, along the basin area, are going to be eliminated.
Okay. So we won't get any water up.
Right. That's
Right.
60,000 gallons a minute is what that station's going to be capable of.
Okay, good, miss?
Yeah, I mean, is there, I'm just trying to think of the pump here. I'm glad there will be a pump, but it sounds like it's going to be rather large. Is there a way of taking the water from those streets and pumping it the other way and making that pump at the other end of town a larger, more
Well, I mean, what you'd have to do is
running a pipe that way?
right. You'd have
Wait, let's not get into this. This is on this ordinance and I gotta close this up. So we
Okay,
can
I'm
do
just,
this, okay?
I'm done.
Close that and, where we at now?
Yeah,
There we're good.
I didn't get an answer.
Yeah, you're good right now.
But I didn't
We're
get
gonna
it.
have public portion
Okay.
after this. I just want to get through this here and then you'll be able to, well, you'll be here. It's offered.
I'll second it.
Okay, I need second.
Councilmember Rion,
Yes.
Councilmember Carr,
Yes.
Councilmember Urigo,
Yes.
Councilmember Wells,
Yes, I just want to, can I speak on it a little bit? Is that okay? I just want to say, I think this is a great ordinance because it's been a long time since we put the investment back in ourselves, although it's been on the books for many years. It's time to start making these positive changes to really, we wonder why investors don't come here. I don't think it's going to be because of pump at the end of the street. It's because they can open a business and it's going to stay dry. It's going to be because nobody's driving past throwing a wake in their door. That's what's going to attract businesses and residents. And, it'll have the public process will be into it. But I think when you look at the overall greater good, you're pumping so much water. Like Mr. Rivera goes through, I see the emails and the phone calls, and it's constant. And if we can alleviate that even a little bit, I think making the investment in ourselves is the right thing to do at this point. Because we don't know how many years the Army Corps project will take. You know what they say on paper, and I think that's going to be a bigger fight than anything we can do on our end to make ourselves better off in the long run. So I think this was all great work. It was, and I say yes.
and Mayor O'Neill.
Yes.
Ordinance number 1704 has been properly introduced. We'll have a public hearing and possible adoption on March 1st, 2017. And finally on the agenda is introduction of ordinance 17-05, which is an amending ordinance for bond ordinance number 013-17, which is pretty much just rewording the project description to allow some residual funds in the bond ordinance to be utilized for street repair.
And wall reconstruction.
I'll offer that. Dale, I'd like to, we can get that meeting set up between now and then the public hearing so the residents are aware.
Sure. Public hearing is when, March 1st?
Yeah.
So what's 1705 do about it?
We're simply adding terminology into that ordinance to allow for wall reconstruction.
All right. Somebody like to move that?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Rion,
Yes.
Councilmember Carr,
Yes.
Councilmember Dorigo,
Yes.
Councilmember Wells,
Yes.
and Mayor O'Neill.
Yes.
And ordinance number 1705 has been properly introduced by the public hearing and possible adoption on March 1st. Other business? Councilmember Carr?
It was ties into all these projects we're doing. We got a clean bill of health from the CAFA DEP. I had a letter, I lost it, and we were gonna have copies for everybody, so we got a clean bill of health. So I'll help Dale and the crew with projects with the beach, associated with Tifa. We'll have copies at the next council meeting so everybody can read it. Yeah, it came from DP Cabot, January 12th. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but it says pretty much at the end of the day, we're gonna clean bill of health, that if we do any projects down there, we have to go through the procedures. Lesson learned, can't do anything without going through all the permit process. This is, we got lucky on this one. So, that's all, should be happy about that.
Good.
That's good.
Okay. You have a report,
And I-
Dan? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go. No, I'm not going, you go.
I didn't see you here, that's the only reason,
No,
I'm
that,
sorry.
I asked for monthly reports to be put on here because I'd like to propose that instead of reading the reports from the 17 committees that we have at the second council meeting each month, that they be posted to the website, because we have a really good website now, and that we don't have to read them, but if members of the public have a question, they're prepared to come to that meeting and ask a question about the specific report, as opposed to each one of us reading 3 or 4 reports.
Yeah,
If they, 17 reports at 2 to 3 minutes apiece, and we're over an hour by the time we discuss it.
And nobody's here.
Okay, so you wanna go through yours quick?
Yeah, just real quick, I'm not gonna hit everything because we talked about a lot of it. We're in the final closeout for the streetscape on Shore Drive, also with the Shrewsbury North project. There was some issues with Sage, with DOT, that Mr. Gagan was successful in getting money added to the borough side of things, but then we still needed to get access to prior projects. So we got that squared away, so we're moving forward, closeout. That'll be more money coming in to the coffers to close those grants out. Veterans Park, looking to hold a pre-construction meeting over the next 2 weeks. Now we're starting to move out of winter, hopefully. We've got contracts executed, so we're ready to go on that.
For the electric.
Yeah, it's for the electric and Veterans Park, so we'll take care of that. And then Streetscape 2, everything's done except for the electric issue. Drinking Central still has not powered up the lights yet, and then the soil for from the tanks. Last thing, just hit on the grant side real quick. We did submit the Portland Road application as requested. That went from Highland Avenue up to Riker Street. So that's been submitted tonight. You did the resolution that's part of that grant that I have to submit. So Mr. Harris, if I could get copies of that resolution quickly over the next couple of days, I'd appreciate it. So we can get those into the DOT. Still no word from Safe Routes to School. That was kind of held up with the TTF. We keep reaching out to them. They still have no affirmative response yet. And then that's pretty much it as far as the grants go. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you, sir. Open up the public portion, and all the questions have been asked. Carol.
Carol Bucko, 330 Shore Drive. I have 2 other notes here, and I don't know where they came from. I suspect they came from the website. We have an ordinance 17-06 coming up.
That was taken off the table because it's being reworked. And that's
Okay.
creating the garbage recycling.
So I wasn't just imagining
No,
that.
We're delusional.
Okay, and also, somewhere in the minutes somewhere, it said, it talked about the mayor appointing the finance committee, and then in the same meeting, you did away with the
Yeah, we
finance.
did away for on public comments or comments of others who were involved in it that said it was
Right.
basically wheels for the kind of thing.
So, perhaps that should be clarified, or you should look at the minutes and see that. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Oh, Ms. Tom, Ms. President?
Just to confirm, 1704 really has nothing to do with the pump station. Basically, it has to do with fixing the steps before the pump station isn't really mentioned. That was just part of the presentation.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Miss, did you have a question?
Yes. So,
Say your name.
Hi, Tricia Rivera, 31 Waterwich.
31 Woodward, okay.
So getting back to what I was asking before, Dale, is it possible to run a pipe to, instead of having 1 million pumping stations, wouldn't it make sense to have a larger one that we can pull water from?
Well,
And
the
pump
problem is you've got 2 right now, so this would be a third because there's nothing in this area of town. The Waterwitch watershed is 165 acres. So you'd have to potentially introduce that 165 into Valley Street, which is already 90 acres. So the Valley Street station, to take the water from this side and move it over instead of coming this way, most likely wouldn't be able to handle it with the size pump that it has. So you'd have to upgrade the pump, most likely. We'd have to look at it, but then you'd have to add more piping and you have to re-slope the pipes towards that way, and then probably make some of the pipes larger, which I know maybe not be the most popular thing, just to get that water to go in that direction. I mean, anything's possible, but it's a matter of.
Valley is not built yet, right?
Yeah, it is.
Well, the pump station is.
What's the pump? There's another pump that was
Out
destroyed.
here in Jones Street, this
No,
pump
no,
isn't there.
There's North Street,
North Street.
and there's Valley Street.
So what about North Street?
Well, you don't want to
That's
bypass
not
Valley and
built
go all the
yet.
way across town, you know? I mean,
Everybody has to share a little bit of the pain.
No,
There's
I'm
three
just,
pump
I'm not,
stations
I'm
and
just
three
saying,
separate spots because
to me, it seems like if you could just build a big pump that can handle more as opposed to a lot of little pumps everywhere.
probably if that one big
I
pump
don't
was
know.
built in the beginning,
Yeah.
yes, but it's not feasible. to do.
Okay, and then my other question is about Captain Coves, and I'm sure that's executive, but are we doing anything about
Yes, that's in the
that
works.
flip? Because it's a nightmare over there.
Okay, it's in the
And
works.
falling apart, and it's a big issue for the people that live in this area.
Noted.
So I just want to make sure that that's on everyone's radar, because something has to be done.
Okay.
As you know, the governor by directed the land use board to study whether that area qualifies as need redevelopment, and I know it was on their agenda last week, but because of the snowstorm, it's been resolved. Okay.
I'm gonna move to adjourn if I don't see anything else. Thanks for coming out, John.